You're under arrest for resisting arrest. Carmen Rodriguez snapped the silver handcuffs around the tall stranger's wrists with more force than necessary, her dark eyes blazing with determination. The man in the expensive Italian suit turned slowly, a smirk playing on his lips. Resisting arrest? Officer, he glanced at her badge. Rodriguez, I was simply adjusting my tie. Bullshit, Carmen shot back, her grip firm on his muscled arm. You took 3 steps back when I approached. That's resisting in my book. Arthur Blackstone, though she didn't know his name yet, studied her with predatory interest. Even handcuffed, he carried himself like he owned the entire downtown Miami district. Your book must be a fascinating read. Carmen felt heat rush to her cheeks. Was this criminal actually flirting with her? Save the charm for someone who cares, pretty boy. Before we continue with this intense encounter, I want to ask you to hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying this story. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I love hearing from viewers all over the world. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you're already hooked on Carmen and Arthur's story. Your support means everything. Now back to our story. Pretty boy. Arthur chuckled, a sound that was somehow both amused and dangerous. I've been called many things, Officer Rodriguez, but that's a first. Carmen marched him toward her patrol car, trying to ignore how the expensive cologne mixed with something distinctly masculine made her pulse quicken. Well, there's a first time for everything, including getting arrested, I bet. You'd be surprised, he murmured, and something in his tone made her glance back. His steel-gray eyes held secrets deeper than the Miami harbor, and Carmen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening breeze. She'd been a cop for 8 years, and her instincts were screaming that this man was far more dangerous than his polite demeanor suggested. In the car, she ordered, opening the back door. Arthur slid in gracefully, never breaking eye contact. This is quite the mistake you're making, officer. The only mistake, Carmen said, slamming the door, is yours. But as she walked around to the driver's seat, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was the one who had just walked into something much bigger than a simple arrest. Arthur Blackstone watched her through the window, and his smile promised consequences she couldn't even imagine. The radio crackled to life. All units be advised. We have a situation developing downtown. Carmen froze. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The Miami PD interrogation room smelled like stale coffee and broken dreams, but Arthur Blackstone sat in the metal chair like it was a throne. Carmen paced behind the two-way mirror, studying him through narrowed eyes. Who is this guy? She muttered to Detective Mike Torres, her partner of 3 years. Mike shrugged, flipping through a surprisingly thin file. Arthur Blackstone. Clean record. Too clean, if you ask me. Carmen watched Arthur adjust his cufflinks with the precision of a man who'd never known uncertainty. Nobody's that calm after getting arrested. Maybe he's just confident his lawyer will get him out, Mike suggested. Or maybe he knows something we don't. Carmen grabbed the door handle. I'm going in. Arthur looked up as she entered, his gaze appreciative as it traveled from her fitted uniform to her determined expression. Officer Rodriguez, I was wondering when you'd join me. Cut the act, Carmen said, dropping into the chair across from him. We both know this isn't your first rodeo. Actually, Arthur leaned forward, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper, it is. I've managed to avoid the pleasure of police hospitality until tonight. Carmen fought the urge to lean closer. His voice was like aged whiskey, smooth, warm, and potentially dangerous. Right, and I'm the Easter Bunny. That would explain the attitude, Arthur said with a grin that transformed his entire face. Despite herself, Carmen felt her lips twitch. Did you just make you almost smile? Guilty as charged. His eyes crinkled with genuine amusement. Though I notice you said almost. Don't get cocky. But Carmen's tone had lost its edge. Look, Mr. Blackstone. Arthur. Arthur. The name felt strange on her tongue. Too personal. I know you're hiding something. Men in $5,000 suits don't wander around downtown Miami at midnight without reason. 5,000? Arthur looked genuinely offended. Officer Rodriguez, this suit cost 12. Carmen blinked. 12,000 for a suit. Italian wool, hand-tailored. I have a reputation to maintain. What kind of reputation requires a suit worth more than my car? Arthur's expression shifted, becoming unreadable. The kind that matters in my line of work. And what line of work would that be? For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, something that made Carmen's cop instinct scream warnings. Then his charming mask slipped back into place. I'm in acquisitions, he said smoothly. Acquisitions of what? Arthur smiled, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. Whatever needs acquiring. The door burst open. Sergeant Lieutenant Sarah Chen stormed in, her face flushed with anger. "Rodriguez, release him, now!" Carmen shot to her feet. "What? Lieutenant, I have probable cause." "You have orders. Cut him loose." Arthur stood slowly, straightening his jacket. "Thank you, Lieutenant. I do appreciate efficiency." As he walked past Carmen, he paused, his breath warm against her ear. "Until next time, Officer Rodriguez." Carmen watched him leave, her heart racing for reasons she refused to examine. "Who the hell was that?" she demanded. Lieutenant Chen's expression was grim. "Someone way above your pay grade, Rodriguez, way above mine too." And Carmen couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., she sat at her kitchen table with a laptop and a mug of cold coffee, diving deep into every database she could access. Arthur Blackstone. The name kept coming up in whispers. Never charged, never convicted, but somehow connected to every major criminal enterprise in South Florida over the past decade. "Son of a bitch," she whispered, scrolling through surveillance photos. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Rodriguez. You're persistent. I like that." Arthur's voice was unmistakable. Carmen's grip tightened on the phone. "How did you get this number?" "I get what I need when I need it." His tone was casual, but she heard steel underneath. "The question is, what do you need, Officer Rodriguez?" "I need you behind bars where you belong." Arthur chuckled. "Still convinced I'm the bad guy? The evidence is pretty compelling." "Evidence? Or assumptions?" His voice grew serious. "Tell me, Carmen, may I call you Carmen? What do you really know about me? I know you're connected to organized crime. I know you have enough money to buy judges and politicians. I know you know gossip and speculation." Arthur's interruption was gentle but firm. "You don't know me." Carmen stood, pacing her small apartment. "Then, enlighten me. Have dinner with me." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Carmen's heart hammered against her ribs. "Are you insane?" "Probably, but I'm also serious. I don't date criminals. Good thing I'm not one then." "Arthur, one dinner, Carmen. Public place. Your choice. If you still want to arrest me afterward, I won't resist." Carmen closed her eyes, every rational instinct screaming at her to hang up. "Why?" "Because you looked at me tonight like I was human. In my world, that's rarer than you might think." The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. "This is crazy." Crazy can be good. Against every professional instinct she possessed, Carmen found herself saying, "Tomorrow night. Ocean Drive, 7 o'clock. I'll be there." The line went dead, and Carmen stared at her phone in disbelief. Had she just agreed to dinner with a suspected crime boss? Her laptop chimed with an incoming email. No sender address, no subject line, just a link to a news article from 6 months ago. Local businessman donates $2 million to Children's Hospital. The photo showed Arthur Blackstone shaking hands with hospital administrators, a genuine smile on his face as he posed with young cancer patients. Carmen sank into her chair, more confused than ever. Nothing about Arthur Blackstone made sense. He was supposed to be a ruthless criminal, but every search turned up contradictions. Charity donations, legitimate businesses, community involvement. But the whispers persisted. The connections, the power that got him released without explanation. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Known. "Sometimes the greatest danger comes from the people we trust most. Be careful who you have dinner with, Officer Rodriguez." Carmen's blood turned to ice. Someone was watching. Someone knew about tomorrow night. She grabbed her service weapon and checked the locks on her apartment door. Whatever game Arthur Blackstone was playing, she was already a piece on the board. Carmen arrived at the trendy Ocean Drive restaurant 15 minutes early, her off-duty outfit carefully chosen, professional but approachable. She'd changed clothes 3 times, telling herself it was tactical planning, not vanity. Arthur was already there, sitting at a corner table that offered clear views of all entrances. Even in casual attire, dark jeans and a simple black button-down, he commanded attention. "You came," he said, standing as she approached. "I said I would." Carmen slid into the chair across from him, hyper-aware of the concealed weapon at her ankle. "Though I'm still questioning my sanity." "Sanity is overrated," Arthur signaled the waiter. "May I order for both of us?" "Presumptuous much?" "Confident," he corrected with a grin. "There's a difference." Despite her reservations, Carmen found herself nodding. Arthur ordered in fluent Spanish, charming their server with easy conversation about the chef's recommendations. "You speak Spanish," Carmen observed. "I speak several languages, useful in business." "What kind of business exactly?" Arthur leaned back, studying her. "Import, export, consulting, investment opportunities." Vague answers, honest answers. "My business interests are diverse." The appetizers arrived, perfectly prepared stone crab claws and plantain chips. Carmen took a bite and closed her eyes appreciatively. "Good choice," she admitted. "I pay attention to details," Arthur said. "For instance, you've checked the exits twice since sitting down. You're carrying a backup weapon on your left ankle, and you're fighting not to like me." Carmen nearly choked on her food. "Excuse me? You want to see me as the villain? It's easier than admitting there might be more to the story." "Maybe because every story I've heard about you involves violence and corruption." Arthur's expression darkened. "And what stories haven't you heard?" Before Carmen could respond, Arthur's phone buzzed. His face went stone cold as he read the message. "We need to leave, now." "What? Why?" Arthur was already standing, dropping cash on the table. "Because in about 30 seconds this place is going to become a war zone." Carmen's training kicked in. She grabbed her purse and followed Arthur toward the kitchen, just as the restaurant's front windows exploded inward. Gunfire erupted. Civilians screamed. Arthur shoved Carmen behind the bar as bullets shattered bottles above their heads. "Stay down," he shouted, producing a pistol from somewhere inside his jacket. "Are you kidding me?" Carmen drew her own weapon. "You're armed? Lucky for both of us." Through the chaos, Carmen saw masked gunmen advancing through the restaurant. Arthur moved with military precision, returning fire while keeping Carmen shielded. "Back exit," he said. "My car." They ran, crouched low as the firefight continued behind them. Arthur's black Porsche waited in the alley, engine running. "How is your car already?" "Get in." They peeled out as more gunshots rang out. Carmen's adrenaline was spiking, her cop brain trying to process what had just happened. "Who were those men?" she demanded. Arthur's jaw was tight. "Competition. Competition for what?" "For something they think I have." Carmen studied his profile in the dashboard lights. "Do you have it?" Arthur glanced at her, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. "That depends on what you mean by it." The cryptic answer frustrated her, but before she could respond, Carmen's phone rang. "Lieutenant Chen." "Rodriguez, where are you? We have reports of gunfire at Ocean Drive." Carmen looked at Arthur, a dozen decisions racing through her mind. "I'm following up on a lead, Lieutenant." "Are you safe?" Carmen met Arthur's eyes. He was watching her intently, waiting to see what she would say, what side she would choose. "Yeah," she said finally. "I'm safe." But as Arthur smiled, relieved, grateful, dangerous, Carmen wondered if that was the biggest lie she'd ever told. Carmen's apartment felt different with Arthur Blackstone filling the space. He moved through her living room like he belonged there, examining her books and family photos with genuine interest. "Your sister?" he asked, pointing to a graduation picture. "Maria. She's a nurse." Carmen watched him carefully. "Why? You have the same eyes. Determined. Beautiful." Heat crept up Carmen's neck. "Don't. Don't what? Don't charm me. I'm still a cop and you're still..." "Still what, Carmen?" She gestured helplessly. "I don't know what you are." Arthur set down the photo and turned to face her. "Then let me tell you." Carmen crossed her arms. "I'm listening. My father built the Blackstone Empire through violence and fear. When he died 5 years ago, I inherited a criminal organization I never wanted." Arthur's voice was matter-of-fact, but Carmen heard the pain underneath. "Every day, I try to move it toward legitimate business, but that process has enemies, both inside my organization and out." "So you admit you're a criminal?" "I admit I'm trying not to be." Carmen studied his face, searching for deception. "Those men at the restaurant, they were after you. They were after what they think I represent. The old ways, the violence." Arthur moved closer. "They don't want me to change. And what do you want?" Arthur stopped inches away, close enough that Carmen could see gold flecks in his gray eyes. "Right now I want to kiss you." Carmen's breath caught. "Arthur, I know it's insane, I know you should run. But Carmen, when I look at you, I see possibility I've never had before." Carmen's rational mind screamed warnings, but her heart was hammering for entirely different reasons. "We can't. This is impossible." "Impossible things happen every day." Arthur cupped her face with surprisingly gentle hands. "Tell me to stop, and I will. Carmen opened her mouth to do exactly that, but no words came. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch. The kiss was soft at first, testing, questioning. Then Carmen responded, and it became something deeper, desperate, dangerous, consuming. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This is crazy," Carmen whispered. "Good crazy or bad crazy?" Before Carmen could answer, her phone rang. The caller ID made her blood freeze. FBI. "Agent Sarah Martinez," the voice said when Carmen answered. "We need to talk." Carmen's eyes widened. Arthur watched her face carefully. "About what?" Carmen managed. "About Arthur Blackstone. We know you've been in contact." Carmen looked at Arthur, seeing her own fear reflected in his eyes. "I don't know what you mean." "Officer Rodriguez, we have photos of you leaving the restaurant together last night. We know he's there with you now." Carmen's stomach dropped. They were being watched. "We're not interested in arresting you," Agent Martinez continued. "We want to offer you a deal." "What kind of deal?" "Help us bring down the Blackstone organization. And we'll protect you from the consequences of your association." Carmen's hand shook as she held the phone. Arthur moved closer, not speaking, but offering silent support. "I need time to think," Carmen said. "You have 24 hours. After that, you're either with us or against us. Choose carefully." "Officer Rodriguez, Arthur Blackstone is more dangerous than you know." The line went dead. Carmen set the phone down with trembling hands. "They want me to betray you," she said quietly. Arthur nodded, his expression grim. "I know." "How do you know?" "Because they've tried this before, with other people who got close to me." Carmen's heart sank. "How many others?" Arthur's silence was answer enough. Carmen realized she wasn't the first woman the FBI had tried to use against Arthur Blackstone. The question was, would she be the last? Carmen stood in the FBI field office at 6 a.m., her hands wrapped around a coffee cup that had long gone cold. Agent Martinez sat across from her, a manila folder thick with photographs and documents between them. "Arthur Blackstone has been the primary target of a joint FBI-DEA task force for 3 years, Martinez explained, sliding photos across the table. "Money laundering, extortion, murder for hire." Carmen's stomach twisted as she looked at crime scene photos. "These deaths are connected to him, directly or indirectly. The Blackstone organization has tentacles throughout South Florida." "But he told me he was trying to go legitimate." Martinez laughed bitterly. "They always say that. It's part of the charm offensive." Carmen studied a surveillance photo of Arthur entering what appeared to be a warehouse. "When was this taken?" "Last month. That warehouse is owned by Viktor Kozlov, Russian mob. They've been moving drugs and weapons through Miami for years. That doesn't prove Arthur was involved." "Officer Rodriguez," Martinez leaned forward, "I understand he's gotten to you. These men are experts at manipulation. But the evidence doesn't lie." Carmen stared at the photos, her mind racing. The Arthur she'd kissed last night seemed incapable of the violence suggested by these images, but Carmen had been wrong about people before. "What exactly do you want me to do?" she asked. "Wear a wire. Get him to talk about his operations. And in exchange, full immunity for any charges related to your contact with him. And witness protection if necessary." Carmen's phone buzzed. Text from Arthur. "Thinking about you, can't wait to see you tonight." Martinez noticed her reaction. "He's texting you." "It's nothing." "Carmen, may I call you Carmen? I know this is difficult, but Arthur Blackstone has killed people. People with families, children." The weight of that statement settled on Carmen's shoulders like lead. She thought about Maria, about her parents in Coral Gables, about the life she'd built as a police officer. "I need to see more evidence," Carmen said finally. Martinez nodded and pulled out another folder. "Viktor Kozlov was found dead yesterday morning. Single gunshot to the head." Carmen's blood chilled. "When?" "Estimated time of death?" "Around 11 p.m. Carmen's mind raced. Arthur had been with her from dinner until she'd dropped him off at his hotel around midnight. But 11 p.m. "We have security footage of Arthur's car leaving the warehouse district at 11:47 p.m. Martinez continued. Carmen felt the world tilting. "I want to see the footage." Martinez queued up a laptop. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. The license plate was clearly visible. Arthur's Porsche. "I'm sorry, Carmen. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear." Carmen stared at the screen, her heart breaking and her training warring with her emotions. Either Arthur had lied to her about everything or— "Agent Martinez," Carmen said slowly, "what if I told you Arthur was with me last night? From 7 p.m. until after midnight. Martinez's eyebrows shot up. Were you? Carmen nodded, the lie coming easier than it should. He never left my sight. That's impossible. We have the surveillance footage. Then your footage is wrong, or it's not from last night. Martinez studied Carmen carefully. You're protecting him. I'm telling the truth. But as Carmen left the FBI office an hour later, she knew she'd just crossed a line there was no coming back from. She'd lied to federal agents to protect a man who might be a killer. The question that terrified her wasn't whether Arthur was guilty. It was whether she cared anymore. Her phone rang. Arthur. Carmen? I need to see you. Now. It's about last night. What about last night? Someone's trying to frame me for Victor Kozlov's murder. Carmen closed her eyes. How do you know about that? Because Victor called me 20 minutes before he died. He was scared, Carmen. Said someone was coming for him, and they wanted it to look like I was responsible. Carmen's world shifted again. Arthur, meet me, please. I can explain everything. Against every rational instinct, Carmen found herself saying, where? Because somewhere between the gunfight and the kiss and the lies to federal agents, Carmen Rodriguez had fallen in love with the most dangerous man in Miami. And love, she was learning, made people do impossible things. The abandoned pier at Virginia Key stretched into Biscayne Bay like a finger pointing toward the unknown. Carmen arrived first, her service weapon checked and loaded, her heart hammering against her ribs. Arthur emerged from the shadows at exactly 9 p.m., his usual confident stride replaced by something more cautious. Thank you for coming, he said, stopping 10 feet away. Start talking. Arthur pulled out his phone, navigating to a voice message. Victor sent me this at 10:40 last night. Victor Kozlov's accented voice filled the night air. Arthur, they are coming. Russians, but not mine. They want war between us, want police to think you kill me. I try to run, but I think it's too late. Tell my daughter in Brighton Beach. Tell her papa tried to be better man. Carmen felt the blood drain from her face. That's 20 minutes before he died. I got there as fast as I could, too late. Arthur's voice was heavy with regret. Victor was trying to go straight like me. Someone wanted us both destroyed. The FBI has surveillance footage of your car. Because I drove there when he called. Found his body. Called 911 from a payphone. Arthur met her eyes. Then I realized how it would look. Carmen's mind raced. So you left. I left. And someone made sure there was footage of me arriving, but not of me calling for help. Who would do that? Arthur was quiet for a long moment. My uncle, Vincent Blackstone. He's never approved of my reforms. The pieces clicked into place. He wants you out of the way. He wants the old ways back. Violence, fear, absolute control. Arthur stepped closer. He also knows about you. Carmen's blood turned to ice. What do you mean? Vincent has people everywhere, including the FBI. The implications hit Carmen like a physical blow. Agent Martinez has been feeding Vincent information for months. Your meeting this morning wasn't random, Carmen. It was orchestrated. Carmen felt sick. To do what? To force you to choose. They knew if the FBI pressured you, you'd either betray me or become complicit. Either way, Vincent wins. Carmen's phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text made her blood freeze. Touching reunion. Too bad it's your last one. V. Arthur saw her face change. What is it? Before Carmen could answer, red laser dots appeared on Arthur's chest. Sniper rifles. Get down! Carmen tackled Arthur as the first shot rang out, the bullet splintering the pier where he'd been standing. They rolled behind a concrete barrier as more shots peppered their position. How many? Arthur shouted over the gunfire. Carmen peered around the barrier, muzzle flashes from 3 positions, the old boathouse, the parking structure, the water tower. 3 shooters, professional setup. Carmen's training kicked in. We're pinned. Arthur was on his phone. It's me. I need extraction. Virginia Key Pier, now. Who are you calling? The only people I trust. Within minutes, Carmen heard the distinctive thrum of helicopter rotors. A sleek black chopper appeared over the bay, searchlight blazing. That's our ride, Arthur said. I can't go with you. I'm a police officer. Another volley of gunfire reminded them they had limited options. Carmen, Arthur grabbed her hands. Vincent won't stop until we're both dead. The FBI can't protect you. They don't know who to trust. Come with me. The helicopter lowered a rope ladder 20 feet from their position. This is insane. Insane is staying here to die. Carmen looked at the helicopter, then at Arthur's desperate face, then at the muzzle flashes that were getting closer. She thought about Maria, about her parents, about the life she'd built. Then she thought about love, and how it made people do impossible things. "If we do this," Carmen shouted over the rotor noise, "we can never go back." "I know." Carmen holstered her weapon, grabbed Arthur's hand, and ran for the ladder. As they climbed toward the helicopter, bullets whistling past them, Carmen realized she wasn't just escaping the pier. She was escaping everything she'd ever been. The question was, what would she become? The helicopter touched down at a private airfield 20 miles north of Miami. As they climbed out, Carmen's legs shook with adrenaline and shock at what she'd just done. "Where are we?" she asked. "Safe house," Arthur replied, leading her toward a modest ranch home, one of the few places Vincent doesn't know about. Inside, the house was surprisingly normal. Comfortable furniture, family photos, children's toys scattered around. "Whose house is this?" Carmen asked. "Sophia's. She was Victor's accountant before she started working for me." Arthur gestured to a photo of a woman with 2 young children. "She's in protective custody with her kids until this is over." Carmen sank onto the couch, the magnitude of her situation hitting her. "I'm a fugitive. I just fled from federal agents." Arthur sat beside her, careful to maintain distance. "Carmen, I'm sorry. I never wanted you caught up in this, but I am caught up in it." Carmen looked at him. "The question is, what now?" Arthur's phone rang. He answered with a curt, "Yeah?" Carmen watched his face change as he listened. "When?" he asked. "How many casualties?" Carmen's stomach dropped. "Understood. Lock down all safe houses. Move everyone to secondary locations." Arthur hung up, his face grim. "What happened?" "Vincent hit 3 of my legitimate businesses tonight. A restaurant, a construction company, a shipping office." Arthur's jaw clenched. 17 people in the hospital." Carmen felt sick. "Because of us?" "Because Vincent is escalating. He's trying to force me into a war." "So what do we do?" Arthur was quiet for a long moment. "We end this. Tonight." "How?" Arthur moved to a wall safe, entering a combination with steady fingers. Inside were documents, cash, and something that made Carmen's breath catch, a recording device. "I've been gathering evidence against Vincent for months," Arthur explained. "Financial records, recorded conversations, witness statements, enough to put him away for life." "Why haven't you used it?" "Because he's family. Because I hoped he'd eventually see reason." Arthur's voice was bitter. "Because I'm an idiot." Carmen studied the documents, bank records showing money laundering, transcripts of recorded phone calls discussing murders, photographs of meetings with known criminals. "This is enough to take down half the criminal network in South Florida," she breathed. "Which is why Vincent will kill anyone who tries to use it against him." Carmen looked up at Arthur. "Including us." "Especially us." They spent the next 2 hours going through the evidence, Carmen's police training helping to organize and prioritize the most damaging material. "There's something I need to tell you," Arthur said as they worked. Carmen looked up from a financial statement. "The night we met, when you arrested me, that wasn't random." Carmen's heart sank. "You were following me." "No. Vincent was. I was following his men, trying to figure out what he was planning." "And what was he planning?" Arthur met her eyes. "To use you against me. He'd been watching you for weeks, Carmen. He knew that if I met you, You'd what?" "I'd fall for you," Arthur said simply. "Vincent knows my weaknesses better than anyone. He knew if I cared about someone, he could use that against me." Carmen felt the pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. "So, everything we've been through was manipulation from the beginning. Vincent wanted us together so he could destroy us both." Carmen stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "So what we have, what I think we have, is it real?" Arthur was behind her in seconds, his reflection joining hers in the dark glass. "Carmen, the one thing Vincent couldn't plan for was that you'd fall for me too." Carmen closed her eyes as Arthur's hands rested gently on her shoulders. "Is that what happened?" she whispered. "You tell me." Carmen turned in his arms, studying his face in the dim light. She saw vulnerability there, fear, hope, all the things a truly dangerous man would never allow himself to feel. "I did," she said quietly. "I fell for you. The kiss was different this time. Slower, deeper, tinged with the knowledge that they might not survive the night." When they broke apart, Carmen made her decision. "How do we bring Vincent down?" Arthur smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, it reached his eyes completely. Together. The Blackstone family compound sat on Star Island like a fortress, 37 rooms of Mediterranean revival architecture, surrounded by walls, cameras, and armed security. Carmen crouched behind the seawall with Arthur at 2 a.m., watching the patrol patterns through night vision binoculars. 4 guards at the main gate, 2 at the dock, roving patrol every 15 minutes, she reported. Vincent's in the main house, 3rd floor, corner office. Arthur checked his watch. He meets with his lieutenants every Tuesday at 3 a.m. Carmen lowered the binoculars. How do we get close enough to record the meeting? Arthur pulled out a small device, a high-tech listening system that looked like something from a spy movie. Sophia's been working on the inside for months. She planted microphones throughout the house before Vincent got suspicious. And how do we access the recordings? The system transmits to a receiver within 1,000 yards. Arthur pointed to a luxury yacht anchored offshore. That's our listening post. They made their way through the water using a small, silent electric boat Arthur had hidden among the mangroves. The yacht, the Sophia's Dream, was dark and apparently empty. But as they climbed aboard, Carmen heard voices from below deck. "Company," she whispered, drawing her backup weapon. Arthur motioned for silence, then led her down the stairs. The voices were clearer now, 2 men arguing in rapid Spanish. "Blackstone's finished. Vincent wants him and the cop dead by sunrise. What about the evidence?" "What evidence? Once they're dead, who's going to present it?" Carmen and Arthur exchanged looks. Vincent's men had found the yacht first. Arthur held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. They burst into the main cabin simultaneously. Carmen went left, Arthur right. 2 men in expensive suits spun toward them, reaching for weapons. "FBI, drop your weapons!" Carmen shouted, falling back on her training. Both men froze. In the confusion, Arthur disarmed the first man while Carmen covered the second. "Zip ties in the galley drawer," Arthur said calmly, as if they'd rehearsed this. Within minutes, both men were secured. Carmen recognized one of them from Arthur's surveillance photos. Marco Delgado, Vincent's enforcer. "Marco," Arthur said conversationally, "I'm disappointed. Breaking into private property is a felony." Marco glared at him. "Vincent knows you're here. He knows about the evidence. Then why isn't he here himself?" "He's busy, setting up your girlfriend's funeral." Carmen's blood went cold. "What do you mean?" Marco smiled unpleasantly. "Check your phone, Officer Rodriguez." Carmen's hands shook as she looked at her phone. 7 missed calls from Maria. 4 text messages, each more frantic than the last. "Carmen, call me back. Something's wrong. There are men watching the house. Carmen, I'm scared. They have Mom and Dad." Carmen's world tilted. No, Arthur was beside her immediately. "Carmen, he has my family." Carmen's voice cracked. "Vincent has my family." Marco laughed. "Vincent says to bring him the evidence, or they die. You have 1 hour." Carmen's rage exploded. She grabbed Marco by the shirt, pressing her gun to his temple. "Where are they?" "I don't know. Vincent doesn't tell foot soldiers everything." Arthur gently pulled Carmen back. "He's telling the truth." Carmen's mind raced. Her training warred with her emotions, but her heart won. "We have to give him what he wants," she said. "Carmen, Arthur, it's my family. If we give Vincent the evidence, he kills all of us, your family included." Carmen knew he was right, but the thought of her parents and Maria in danger made logical thought impossible. Then the yacht's communication system crackled to life. Vincent's voice filled the cabin. "Arthur, my boy, I trust you've received my message." Arthur grabbed the radio. "Let them go, Vincent. This is between us." "Oh, but it isn't. Officer Rodriguez made it my business when she chose you over duty." Carmen grabbed the radio from Arthur. "What do you want?" "Simple exchange. The evidence for your family. Bayfront Park, sunrise." "How do I know they're alive?" A pause. Then Carmen heard her mother's terrified voice. "Carmen, Mija, don't do what he wants, don't—" The transmission cut off. Carmen sank to her knees, overwhelmed. Arthur knelt beside her. "We'll get them back." "How?" "If we give him the evidence, he wins. If we don't, they die." Arthur was quiet for a long moment. "Then, there is another way." Carmen looked up at him. "We don't give Vincent the evidence," Arthur said. "We give him something better." "What?" Arthur's smile was cold, calculated, and completely dangerous. "We give him me." Bayfront Park at sunrise was ethereal. Early joggers, couples walking dogs, the morning ferry chugging towards South Beach. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that in the pavilion overlooking the bay, a war was about to end. Carmen approached from the north, the evidence files in a briefcase, every nerve screaming danger. Arthur was somewhere in the crowd, she hoped, executing the most insane plan either of them had ever conceived. Vincent Blackstone sat alone at a picnic table, impeccably dressed despite the early hour. 57 years old, silver-haired, looking more like a senator than a crime boss. "Officer Rodriguez," he stood as she approached. "Punctual. I appreciate that. Where's my family?" Vincent gestured to a black SUV parked 50 yards away. Through the tinted windows, Carmen could make out 3 figures, alive and unharmed for now. Carmen set the briefcase on the table. The evidence. All of it. Vincent smiled. "How do I know it's complete?" "Because I want my family alive more than I want you dead." "Wise choice." Vincent opened the briefcase, scanning the documents. "Impressive work. Arthur always was thorough." "Speaking of Arthur—" "Oh, he's here," Vincent said casually. "In fact, he's been here for an hour." Carmen's heart stopped. "What?" Vincent raised his hand, and Carmen heard the distinctive whir-click of multiple rifle bolts. "Arthur, my boy," Vincent called out. "Stop hiding, you're embarrassing yourself." Arthur emerged from behind the pavilion, hands visible but not raised. Even from a distance, Carmen could see the fury in his posture. "Vincent," Arthur said, walking closer, "let her family go. You have what you want." "Do I?" "This evidence implicates me in dozens of crimes, Arthur. Did you really think I'd let either of you live to present it in court?" Carmen's police training kicked in, her eyes cataloguing the tactical situation. Multiple sniper positions, no cover. Arthur walking into a kill zone. "The deal was the evidence for her family," Arthur said, now close enough that Carmen could see the resignation in his eyes. "The deal," Vincent said, "was whatever I wanted it to be." Carmen realized with crystal clarity that Vincent had never intended to honor any agreement. They were all going to die. But then Arthur smiled, that same cold, calculated expression she'd seen on the yacht. "You know, Uncle, there's something I forgot to mention about that evidence." Vincent's hand froze over the briefcase. "What?" "Carmen didn't bring you the originals." Vincent's face went white. "What did you say?" Carmen realized what Arthur was doing and played along. "FBI has had copies for 3 days. If we don't check in every 6 hours..." "You're bluffing," Vincent snarled. Arthur pulled out his phone, showing Vincent a text thread with Agent Martinez. "Package delivered. Standing by for your signal." "Agent Martinez has been our contact from the beginning." Arthur lied smoothly. "She's been building a case against you for months." Vincent's face contorted with rage. "Impossible. Martinez works for me." "Martinez works for justice," Arthur said. "She's been feeding you false information while gathering evidence of your corruption." Carmen watched Vincent's composure crack. For 30 years, he'd controlled every variable, manipulated every player. The possibility that he'd been outmaneuvered was destroying him. "Even if that's true," Vincent said desperately, "you'll both be dead before any arrests are made." "Will we?" Arthur asked. That's when Carmen heard them. Sirens. Multiple sirens, coming from every direction. FBI vans screeched into the park from 3 entrances. SWAT teams poured out, weapons trained on Vincent's sniper positions. Agent Martinez's voice echoed through a bullhorn. "Vincent Blackstone, you're under arrest. All weapons down now." Carmen stared at Arthur in amazement. "How?" "I called Martinez last night after we were attacked at the pier. Turns out she's been investigating Vincent's FBI contacts for months." Vincent looked around at the federal agents surrounding him, his empire crumbling in real time. "This isn't over," he said to Arthur. "Yes, Uncle," Arthur replied sadly. "It is." As federal agents moved in, Carmen saw the SUV doors open. Her parents and Maria stumbled out, shaken but unharmed. "Mom!" Carmen ran toward them but stopped when she saw Arthur standing alone, watching Vincent being handcuffed. For a moment she was torn between family and the man who'd turned her world upside down. Then Arthur looked at her and smiled, not the dangerous smile or the charming one, but something entirely new, something that looked like freedom. "Go," he said. "They need you." Carmen ran to her family, but her eyes stayed on Arthur Blackstone, wondering what happened next to a man who'd just destroyed his own world to save hers. 3 weeks later, Carmen sat in FBI agent Martinez's office, staring at a stack of paperwork that would determine the rest of her life. "Full immunity from federal prosecution," Martinez explained, "in exchange for your testimony against Vincent Blackstone and his organization." And my job with Miami PD? Internal Affairs cleared you yesterday. Unofficially, the department considers you a hero. Carmen signed the papers, but her mind was elsewhere. She hadn't seen Arthur since that morning in the park. Agent Martinez, what happens to Arthur? Witness protection, most likely. His testimony will dismantle what's left of the Blackstone operation. And then? Then he disappears. New identity, new life. It's the only way he'll survive. Carmen's heart sank. She'd known this was coming, but hearing it made it real. Can I see him before he goes? Martinez hesitated. That's complicated. Why? Because he asked specifically not to see you. The words hit Carmen like a physical blow. What? He said it would be easier for both of you to make a clean break. Carmen stood abruptly. Where is he? Carmen, where is he? Agent Martinez. Martinez sighed. Safe house in Coral Gables, but I can't let you. Carmen was already heading for the door. The safe house was a modest two-story colonial on a tree-lined street. Carmen sat in her car for 20 minutes, gathering courage. Arthur answered the door looking tired but healthy. He'd traded his expensive suits for jeans and a simple button-down, but he was still the most attractive man she'd ever seen. Carmen, his voice was carefully neutral. You shouldn't be here. Probably not, she agreed, pushing past him into the living room. Agent Martinez told you I didn't want to see you. Agent Martinez told me you said it would be easier. That's different. Arthur closed the door, keeping his distance. Easier for who? You tell me. Carmen turned to face him. Is this easier? Arthur's mask slipped, revealing pain he'd been hiding. Yes. Liar. Carmen? Arthur, I love you. The words hung in the air between them. Arthur closed his eyes as if they'd caused physical pain. I love you too, he said quietly, which is why I'm letting you go. What if I don't want to be let go? You have a life, a career, a family. I have nothing to offer you but danger and uncertainty. Carmen stepped closer. You have yourself to offer me. That's enough. Is it? When you're looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life? When our children have to live in hiding? Our children? Carmen's heart leaped. Arthur realized what he'd said and looked away. Carmen, please, don't make this harder. Maybe harder is better. Maybe easy is overrated. Arthur moved to the window, staring out at the street. They want to relocate me to Oregon. Small town, new identity. I'll own a hardware store or teach high school math. Sounds boring. Sounds safe. For who? Arthur turned back to her. For you. If Vincent's people think I'm dead, they'll leave you alone. Carmen understood now. This wasn't about Arthur protecting himself. It was about protecting her. And if I don't want to be safe, she asked, then you're as crazy as I am. Carmen smiled. Good crazy or bad crazy? Despite himself, Arthur smiled back. The best kind. They stood looking at each other across the room, both afraid to move, both afraid not to. I have an idea, Carmen said finally. I'm listening. What if you didn't disappear alone? Arthur's eyes widened. Carmen, what if a certain Miami police officer decided to take early retirement, maybe move to a small town in Oregon? You can't give up everything for me. I'm not giving up everything. I'm gaining everything. Arthur was across the room before Carmen could blink, cupping her face in his hands. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. The kiss was desperate, grateful, full of promises neither of them had dared to make before. When they broke apart, Arthur rested his forehead against hers. Carmen Rodriguez, he said, will you run away with me? Carmen laughed, tears streaming down her face. Arthur Blackstone, I thought you'd never ask. Outside, a car engine started. Through the window, Carmen saw a black sedan pulling away from the curb. Vincent's people? She asked. Arthur looked out the window, then back at her, his expression peaceful. Probably. But you know what? What? I'm not running from them anymore. Carmen raised an eyebrow. No? Arthur's smile was pure mischief. I'm running towards something better. 1 year later, morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Blackstone Hardware in Cedar Creek, Oregon, population 3,847. Arthur stood behind the counter, helping Mrs. Patterson select the right screws for her fence repair, when the bell above the door chimed. Morning, Officer Blackstone, called out Chief Morrison, the town's only other law enforcement officer. Carmen looked up from the inventory she was organizing, her wedding ring catching the light. Morning, Chief. Coffee's fresh if you want some. Arthur watched his wife move through the store with easy familiarity, still amazed that she'd chosen this life with him. The simple gold band on her finger was nothing compared to the diamonds he could have afforded in his old life. But Carmen had laughed when he apologized for it. "Arthur," she'd said, "I don't want the life you used to live. I want the life we're building." And they were building it, piece by piece. Arthur had discovered he actually enjoyed helping people fix things. Leaky faucets, broken lawnmowers, squeaky hinges. Simple problems with simple solutions. "Actually, I'm here on business," Chief Morrison said, accepting the coffee from Carmen. "We've got a situation." Arthur tensed, old instincts flaring. "What kind of situation?" "Missing person. Sarah Chen, 16 years old, disappeared from her family's campsite 3 nights ago." Carmen's expression shifted into cop mode. "Any signs of foul play?" Her tent was torn open from the outside, personal belongings scattered, but no blood, no obvious signs of struggle. Arthur found himself analyzing the information like he used to analyze criminal enterprises. "Search pattern? We've covered a 5-mile radius. State police brought in dogs. Helicopters, nothing." Carmen looked at Arthur. In the year they'd been in Cedar Creek, they'd deliberately kept their law enforcement expertise quiet. Arthur was the helpful hardware store owner. Carmen was his wife who'd moved from the city. They'd never mentioned their previous lives. But a missing teenager changed things. "Chief," Carmen said carefully, "Arthur and I might be able to help. We have some experience with investigations." Chief Morrison raised an eyebrow. "What kind of experience?" Arthur and Carmen exchanged looks. They'd rehearsed this moment, knowing it would come eventually. "The kind that might find Sarah Chen," Arthur said simply. 3 hours later, they were at the campsite where Sarah had disappeared. Carmen studied the scene with trained eyes while Arthur questioned the family. "No signs of animal attack," Carmen reported quietly. "The damage to the tent is deliberate. Someone wanted in fast." "Sarah's father says she was arguing with her boyfriend before the camping trip," Arthur said. "Kid named Jason Miller. Local boy? From Portland. Drove up to see her the day before she disappeared." Carmen felt the familiar thrill of a case coming together. "Where is he now?" "That's the interesting part. He checked out of his motel the morning after Sarah disappeared." They spent the rest of the day interviewing witnesses, following leads, using skills they'd hoped never to need again. But as the sun set without finding Sarah, Carmen felt the old desperation setting in. "We're missing something," she said, as they drove back to town. Arthur was quiet, thinking. "Carmen, what if Sarah wasn't taken?" "You think she ran?" "I think she left with someone she trusted." Carmen's phone rang. "Chief Morrison. We found Jason Miller's car," he said without preamble, "abandoned at a rest stop 30 miles north. Carmen, there's blood in the trunk." Carmen's stomach dropped. "How much blood?" "Enough." Arthur was already turning the truck around, heading north. They reached the rest stop just as the state crime scene unit was finishing their preliminary examination. Arthur studied the abandoned Honda Civic, while Carmen talked to the forensics technician. "Type O negative blood," the technician reported, "consistent with the missing girl's medical records." Arthur opened the car's glove compartment, finding registration and insurance papers for Jason Miller, but tucked behind them was something else, a note in a young woman's handwriting. "Carmen," he called her over, "look at this." The note was simple. "If something happens to me, look for the cabin where Jason proposed. Sarah." Carmen stared at the note. She knew she was in danger. "She left us a clue." Chief Morrison joined them. "Any idea what cabin she's talking about?" Carmen was already on her phone, calling Jason's emergency contact, his mother in Portland. "Mrs. Miller, this is Officer Blackstone with the Cedar Creek Police. I need to ask about a cabin where your son might have proposed to his girlfriend." 20 minutes later, they had an address. The cabin was 40 miles deeper into the Oregon wilderness, accessible only by logging roads. As they approached, Arthur felt his old tactical training resurface. 2 vehicles in the driveway, he observed through binoculars, lights on in the main room. "Movement?" Carmen asked. "Can't tell from here." They approached on foot, weapons drawn. Through the cabin windows, they could see 2 figures, a young man and woman both tied to chairs. "Sarah and Jason," Carmen whispered, "both alive. Who's the threat?" Before Arthur could answer, a voice behind them said, "Drop your weapons." They turned slowly to find a man in his 40s pointing a rifle at them. Arthur recognized the type. Desperate. Probably not a professional, but dangerous because of it. "You the kidnapper?" Carmen asked calmly. "I'm Sarah's father," the man said. "Her real father?" Carmen's mind raced. Mr. Chen said Mr. Chen adopted her when she was 5. I'm her biological father, and I'm taking her home. Arthur understood now. Custody dispute. My ex-wife stole my daughter 16 years ago, changed her name, moved across the country. I've been looking for her ever since. So you kidnapped her? Carmen's voice was incredulous. I rescued her from people who stole her from me. Arthur could see the man was on the edge, desperate. Convinced he was in the right, probably armed beyond the rifle. What about Jason? Arthur asked. Collateral damage. Kid was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Carmen caught Arthur's eye. They'd worked together long enough to communicate without words. Look, Carmen said, taking a step forward. I understand wanting your daughter back, but this isn't the way. Every legal way was exhausted years ago. Arthur moved slightly to the right, flanking position. What's your name? Carmen continued talking, keeping the man's attention. David. David Palmer. David, what happens after this? Even if you get away with Sarah, do you think she'll want to stay with someone who kidnapped her? She'll understand when she knows the truth. Arthur was close enough now. He caught Carmen's eye and nodded. The truth is, Carmen said, you're terrifying her. David's grip on the rifle wavered as emotion overcame him. I just want my daughter back. That's when Arthur moved. He tackled David from the side, the rifle discharging harmlessly into the air. Carmen was on them immediately, helping secure the weapon. It's over, David, Arthur said gently. It's over. 2 hours later, Sarah Chen was reunited with her adoptive parents, while David Palmer was taken into custody. Jason Miller had a concussion but would recover. As they drove back to Cedar Creek, Carmen looked over at Arthur. So much for our quiet life, she said. Arthur reached over and took her hand. You know what? What? I kind of missed it, Carmen laughed. The adrenaline rush, the chance to help people, to make a difference. Carmen was quiet for a long moment. Arthur, what would you think about me applying to be Cedar Creek's second police officer? Arthur glanced at her, surprised. Really? Chief Morrison mentioned they have the budget, and apparently there's more crime in small towns than we thought. Arthur smiled. I think it's perfect. And you'll keep running the hardware store? Someone has to keep the town's hinges from squeaking. Carmen laughed, the sound filling the truck cabin. You know, for two people who were supposed to disappear, we're doing a terrible job of staying invisible. Maybe invisible is overrated. Maybe it is. As they drove through the Oregon night toward home, Carmen reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A year ago, she'd been a Miami police officer who thought she understood the difference between right and wrong. Arthur had been a man trying to escape his family's criminal legacy. Now they were partners in every sense of the word, in marriage, in business, in the endless project of building a life together. Carmen's phone buzzed with a text from Agent Martinez. Saw the news about the missing girl case. Nice work, you two. Vincent's final appeal was denied yesterday. He'll die in prison. You're both free to live whatever life you want. Carmen showed Arthur the message. Free, Arthur repeated thoughtfully. That's a word I never thought I'd apply to myself. What does freedom feel like? Carmen asked. Arthur considered the question as they pulled into their driveway. The house they'd bought was small, modest, nothing like the mansion Arthur had owned in Miami. But it was theirs, earned honestly, filled with love. Freedom feels like choice, he said finally. Like knowing that tomorrow I get to wake up next to you and decide what kind of day we want to have. Carmen leaned over and kissed him, tasting possibility and promise and the kind of love that made people do impossible things. Tomorrow, she said, I want to have the kind of day where we solve crimes and sell hardware, and maybe plant those roses by the front porch. Arthur smiled. Sounds perfect. And maybe, Carmen added with a mischievous grin, work on that project we discussed. What project? Carmen placed her hand on her still flat stomach. The one that takes 9 months to complete. Arthur's eyes widened. Carmen, are you saying... I'm saying freedom feels like building something beautiful with someone you love, and I can't think of anything more beautiful than a family. Arthur pulled her close, overwhelmed with gratitude for the impossible love that had led them here. Outside their small house in Cedar Creek, Oregon, the night was quiet and safe and full of endless possibility. Inside, two former fugitives planned their future, one day at a time, because sometimes the greatest adventure isn't running from something, sometimes it's running towards something better.